All right, we're recording. That means we're live and we go. So, welcome to our special event of this month in Yoga Health Nurse. I'm so excited to spend more time with our guest, Janna. I met Janna through our Facebook group, and I've been watching her coaching because she coaches all about burnout, and I will read more about her in a minute. But I wanted to give you a little bit background of how she came into my life. And basically, if you know my story, you know that I have before struggled with burnout, and I continue to struggle with burnout in different areas of your life or of my life, because I just feel like it comes and goes in seasons. And I don't necessarily believe that burnout is a bad thing all the time, because if you think of yoga philosophy and our tapas or our heat, it can create some discipline in there if you have some heat going on, or it can create new beginnings. So if you think about something that burns down like a field, then it creates new beginnings for new things to rise up. So it's not always a negative thing, although it is felt to be negative emotionally, spiritually, physically in your body. But Janna is going to basically give us really cool tips and tricks and tools, and also let us know about an awesome offering that she has going on. So first, just to read a little bit about Janna, because it's a big bio and I couldn't memorize it by heart, but she uses her personal experiences in burnout as a nurse. So she's a registered nurse. She works in the cardiothoracic ICU, and she's also a charge nurse. So she gets where we are. And she's also an entrepreneur, or like I like to say, a nursepreneur. She transformed from hustling to the point of exhaustion and overwhelm to an energetic and self-confident badass. And you know, me and my little swear words, I love to put that in there. So I think I was like instantly attracted to her. That was like, she literally says badass. That's amazing. So that was another thing. So now Janna helps ambitious side hustling women go from overwhelmed and exhausted to create time and financial freedom, which tends to be most of our barriers to self-care, is lack of time, lack of cash for ourselves. Janna has created a system of tools from her own recovery, along with training from CTI and the Life Coach School. So she's legit to offer one-on-one burnout coaching, as well as burnout workshops for teams and organizations. So boom, sauce. She's awesome. And I'm excited to have you here. And I'm going to go ahead and try to give you the mic just to kind of say hello, and then we'll switch back. We'll see how this goes. So I can just unmute, or you can just unmute yourself.
I can unmute myself.
Yeah. And then I'll give
I'm
you
capable of doing that. We're good. All right. Hi, guys. I'm excited to be here. I feel like that was like a very dramatic reading of my bio, and I enjoyed it. And yes, I absolutely love the word badass. And I feel like that is like the total embodiment of what I try to be. And if you love me using some swear language, you're going to love my masterclass, because day number 3 is called Permission to Chill the F Out. So we're good.
Love it. Love it.
So yeah, as you already know, I am a registered nurse, and work in the CVICU, and then have been experiencing burnout many times through nursing. And then I started working in network marketing, because I thought this was going to be my way to financial freedom away from nursing, and then burned myself out there again, and then started with a coach, and then started a coaching business, and then burnt myself out again. So I have a lot of experience with burnout, but now through multiple experiences in burnout, and learning all of the tools, I've done all of the research and learned from my own mistakes, and then now coach clients. So I see a lot of the same things over and over again. So really knowing that you're not alone in this, and a lot of the same thoughts that we think we're unique in is not the case. So I'm excited to get into this, and I will pass the mic back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just loved our first talk together. I felt like you coached me throughout the entire thing. And I was like, this is amazing. You made me realize, kind of gave me permission. I think a lot of the times we as hustlers or, just, I don't know, fight or flight, like addicted people, that we just need permission sometimes to slow down or to give yourself a break or to show up in another way that maybe you're just feeling guilty about giving yourself permission to do that. So coaching isn't somebody telling you what to do, but sometimes it's really you trying to figure out, but just by speaking, sometimes just talking to yourself helps in that way, or talking to the coach helps in the way. So another great way to do that as well is journaling. So we're going to do a little reflection before we get started tonight. But if you're with us live or if you're watching at another time, I'd like you to find a comfortable seated position, because we are going to do what we normally do in yoga is center before we really get started. So wherever you are, just make sure that you have a really nice tall spine. You can bring your hands down to your laps. Again, we want to be comfy, cozy here tonight. We're super laid back, nothing to be expected of you, but just to be present, and close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out of the mouth. And do this 2 more times. In through the nose and out of the mouth. Last time, deepest inhale and longest exhale. Good. And with your eyes still closed, maybe you have your feet on the floor, so you just feel a little bit grounding somewhere in your body. Feel where your body is connected to the surface that you're sitting on, or maybe you're laying down, but just make connection with that. And just continue your breath just naturally. And I'd like to take your awareness down to your feet as we start a body scan. So just recognizing what's showing up as we scan from the feet all the way up to the crown of the head. So we're going to take our time. Again, just let the breath naturally flow in and out. Notice what is happening in the feet. So any tension there. As nurses, we're on our feet a lot. And then coming up to the ankles and the shins and the calves, and trying to relax these areas as much as you can. And then the knees, the thighs, front and back. And the hips. And if you're seated, maybe feel some more heaviness happening in the hips, grounding down. And straightening the spine as you feel some softening in the belly. And in the lower back. And in the chest wall, soft in there, in the heart space, opening up to receive. And let the shoulders fall down from the ears. And feel that effect in the back of the body. So the shoulder blades melting down, down, down. Let the arms hang heavy. Maybe your palms are facing up. Feel the lightness on the palms. And then release the jaw. Let the tongue come off of the roof of the mouth. Maybe your mouth opens just slightly. And soften the cheeks as if they're pouring off your face. The eyes. And try to straighten out that wrinkle in between the eyebrows. So soften that space, the forehead, the crown of the head, and the whole head. And take another deep breath in through the nose and out of the mouth. And simply pause here. Just noticing any shifts that just occurred, maybe in the body or the brain, the emotions. And when you're ready, you can flutter your eyes open. And then I would love for you to just grab your piece of paper or a journal. If you didn't bring that with you, no biggie. You can just think about what we're about to ask. So just taking a moment to reflect on how that body awareness felt to you. So physically, emotionally, just writing that down. Because every time that you may feel tense or that you don't have enough time or burnt out, knowing that you can look at that piece of paper and say, that is how I will feel. I will feel that healing after about 2 minutes of scanning my body for tension from the toes to the crown of the head, continuing to breathe. And then the second part I would love for you just to reflect on is where you are in the feeling or the sense of burnout. So usually the trajectory is you get really stressed, you can become fatigued from compassion, whether it's to other people. We tend to become more compassion fatigued towards ourselves first. And then it will lead further into burnout. And if we don't interject or change at that time, it causes you to want to leave the profession. And you know that my goal is to namaste in nursing. I want to keep you in the nursing profession. And that's why I'm so excited to finally give the mic over to Janna, who is a nurse, and she's here to talk to us all about burnout. And we will definitely have a Q&A after she's done. So thank you. And I will go ahead and make Janna the host. I think I did it.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Now it's switched.
Good.
All right.
right.
So here
And
we go.
can you just pin yourself, or do I have to do that? Because now I'm still pinned.
I can pin myself as well.
Okay. Do that.
Apparently you can pin and spotlight multiple people. So there you have it.
Oh. Right.
Wonderful.
Fancy Zoom. Fancy. I still just see me, but
I'm gonna hide myself because otherwise I just stare at myself and
okay. That's fine.
So you can see me, but I can't see me. That's the cool thing.
All right, cool.
Anyway. All right. So I am going to talk to you about burnout. If you guys have any like questions or suggestions or anything that's related to the current thing I'm talking about, I have no issues with people like interrupting. Although if it's just general burnout questions, then keep those to the end, and we can do more of like a Q&A on that. So already kind of talked about my story with burnout, so really just gonna get into it. Really talking about your brain. So I think this is so important to understand how our brains work. And in doing that, it's a lot easier to give yourself grace for a lot of the things that you're experiencing. There's so many self-criticizing and negative emotions and thoughts patterns that really happen with burnout, and understanding the brain patterns makes it just like a little bit easier to be like, I'm not the only one who's this hard on themselves. So really your brain is kind of separated into your primitive brain and then your prefrontal cortex. So the primitive brain has one job: to keep you alive. It's literally only designed to keep you alive. It's designed to keep you safe. And it tends to be that fearful, doubting voice in your head. So this part of your brain is really, as I just said, designed to keep you alive. But it is like that instincts that go back to our, caveman time, where our real life threats would be like, a lion, tiger, bear, something trying to eat us. And your brain is still looking at today's environment, today's nursing experience as that experience. So your brain is going to doubt any unknown. If you've ever, considered stepping out, maybe trying something new, trying a new position, doing a new role within the nursing profession, and your brain like freaked out and had all this doubt, that is really that brain trying to keep you safe. And then there's the other brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that's actually making conscious decisions, deciding things in your life. That's really when this brain, so this the prefrontal cortex is that intentional brain, whereas the other one is that instinctual, unconscious, running on habits brain. So understanding those differences is important, because a lot of the times in burnout, that primitive brain is running the show. So you are unconscious in your actions, you are criticizing yourself, you are doubting, you are, feeling insecure in your nursing practice. All of that is coming from that primitive brain. And it seems kind of counterintuitive, because you're like, wouldn't my brain would like to support me, you think? And you're like, no, unfortunately, you're a human and we have some struggles. But the prefrontal cortex is the one that's deciding. So a lot of the work I do is really just making your thinking intentional and intentionally choosing things. And that's going to actually improve the way you're feeling. So feelings, how do those work? So basically your brain has a thought. You have 60,000 of them a day. So your brain thinks something, and what does that, it literally comes up with a sentence. We do everything in stories. Your brain creates stories about everything. You create a sentence, and then that sentence is brought down so it sends a signal to your body. And how does that show up? It shows up in a sensation. So sensations, maybe you have a tightness in your chest or a heaviness when you're thinking about going into your next shift. Then that sensation goes back up to your brain, and your brain interprets that as an emotion, a feeling. So this cycle happens continually and mostly unconsciously. But the reason that we're feeling horrible and feeling in burnout is often just because of the sentences that we keep replaying in our brains. It's kind of like mind-boggling, but so amazing because we can flip it. So your brain is working on this pain axis, and we can switch it to a pleasure axis. So pretty much everything you do in your life is trying to avoid the pain and seeking pleasure, but we get stuck in the pain when we're in this state of burnout. So really just going through the main pillars of burnout. Everyone has their own burnout experience. The most common emotions I have people tell me are this exhaustion and overwhelm. Those are the two main ones that I hear people say over and over again. But I love to separate burnout into these three categories. So the first one, emotional exhaustion. This is basically your battery is fully drained. You have nothing left to give. You have, like, if anybody comes to you with additional tasks, those little teeny like molehills turn into huge mountains. And if you've ever just like been so overwhelmed at work, and then you get another admission and you could have a full-blown 2-year-old temper tantrum because this is not okay, I cannot deal with this. Like, that is totally normal and part of burnout, because you have drained yourself down so low, you don't have the capacity to handle that additional stress. So that's really when that happens. And another really common one is I hear people say they go home from work and they like snapped at their spouse. Their spouse is like, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, you know, the kind of day I had. Like that is like, you're over dramatic in your response. You really can't help it because your brain can't, like, it's just hit that tipping point. But this is really that eye-opening awareness. Like, you're in a state of burnout and it's because of this emotional exhaustion is happening. The next one is compassion fatigue. I feel like this is the one that everybody in healthcare professional talks about. Everyone talks about compassion fatigue. I've had many people be like, oh, you shouldn't say burnout. It's too harsh. You should say compassion fatigue. And it's like, okay, burnout is harsh because it is harsh. It's not like it doesn't need to be pleasant. It's like a really shitty time. So compassion fatigue is only a piece of burnout. So what is compassion fatigue? Lindsay already kind of talked about it. It's you've lost the ability to have compassion for yourself. And generally, we don't notice that. That's like a lot of the times is being that hard, the criticism on yourself. But most people tend to notice it when it's happening in others. So if you could think of, like, say your best friend came to you and they just broke up with their boyfriend of a long time and they're devastated, like bawling their eyes out. And if your first thought is like, I do not have time for this right now. I have enough of my own problems. Like, can you just stop crying and get over it so that like I can get back to me? If that's your response, you are in the state of compassion fatigue. I feel like that's like when people tend to notice it is when it's in others, but it's happening long before in yourself. Is really you're harder and harder on yourself and you don't have that grace or the compassion for yourself. And that tends to go into the next category, which is the feelings of lack of personal accomplishment. I think this is the most sneaky one because people tend not to see it in themselves. And even once it's pointed out, people are like, eh. So feelings of lack of personal accomplishment. This shows up when you feel that your work is not valued. If you can think about your job right now, do you feel that you're valued? Do you feel that you're paid adequately for the work you do? Do you feel that you make an impact on the work, you know, in your environment, in your patients, in your unit? If you're saying no to all of those, you're generally in this state, which is you can't see your own impact and you can't recognize how powerful you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You could have the worst possible job and you could still find gratitude and a sense of accomplishment because that's made internally. And in this state, you've shifted that to an external. So you're looking for validation from people who won't give it. So you're bringing that to yourself and saying, well, they don't recognize it, so I'm not good enough, which means I'm probably going to leave this profession. Maybe I'm going to go to another unit because the grass is already greener on the other side. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But this one is really important is because people tend to not be able to see that. And you can create, no matter what unit you are, no matter how many patients you are, no matter who your management is, no matter what the like patient census is, you can create sense of accomplishment, a sense of impact wherever you are. It's all created by our thinking. And when you show up knowing the impact that you have, knowing how important and how powerful you are, people sense that and that energy comes back to you. And then people were going to start recognizing you. Then people are going to be, wow, you really did a great job. But if you're miserable that people aren't showing up, then that's going to show up and then people aren't going to bring that back to you. So I think that's such an interesting kind of dichotomy that happens. So, is the grass or greener on the other side? I think this is something that is huge in nursing. Job hopping. Like, I can say probably most of you have tried out multiple different units. And especially with nursing, there's so much variety. You can find a place that's your home. But the problem is if you keep moving to different places and you still have the same issues, if you still don't feel like you're valued, if you still feel that it's somebody else's problem why you're not enjoying your profession, the problem isn't the unit. The problem is not the patient, like the patient population. The problem is you. I'm sorry to say, this is like the hardcore. It is your brain. Unfortunately, no matter where you go, if you create these patterns for yourself, you're going to take your brain with you, and you may have a little honeymoon period. So if you've tried a new job, you have that excitement of a new job, you've learned new things, and it's great until you get like 2 months in, and then you're like, oh, back to the same old, because your brain patterns come back. Our brains are creatures of habit, and that primitive brain is going to keep coming back with all of that negativity, and you're going to keep spiraling and finding yourself in those same patterns of burnout over and over again. And that doesn't, and I think Lindsay said this, and I absolutely love it. Burnout is not necessarily like the end all. It is really that time where you burn down to start new again. This is your opportunity to do something for yourself so that you can create a better life for you. So that really comes into how do you do that is self-care. I feel like everybody says they do not have time, they do not have money for self-care. And those are both not valid. They are both easy excuses that our brains come up with because it's unknown. Our brains love to make excuses because they don't like to do the work. So your brain is always going to try to protect you, and it's going to try to choose the easiest path that uses the least energy. Because if you're thinking of us way back when we were hunter-gatherers, burning calories means we had to get more food. So our brains like the easy, less burning calories. We're just going to stay in the uncomfortable discomfort of where we are now. But self-care is actually going to help you create those energy, to create that calm, that clarity, that self-confidence, to create the impact, the feelings of gratification in what you do. So self-care is really just taking time for yourself. This does not have to be expensive. You do not need to get your hair done, your nails done. You do not need to spend a lot of money. This is just taking time for you. Two of the analogies I absolutely love is just think of your phone battery. So your phone needs to be charged on like a daily basis. So when, like, if your phone is at 5%, think of your phone at 5%, and an incoming call comes in that you like need to take. So you're like, okay, I'm going to take this, and like you better work. And if you die, and then of course it dies like halfway through the call. Think about how effectively your phone works at 5%. Now, you in a state of burnout are working as effectively as your phone at 5%. And maybe you do 1 or 2 activities to recharge yourself every week or two. So you're getting up to like maybe 10 or 20%, but like that's kind of on like a good day. So your battery keeps getting drained and you're not doing the necessary work to recharge it. So have you ever like been so incredibly exhausted and you're trying to do like, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning on a night shift, you're trying to do like the simplest of tasks and you just cannot make it work. Like your brain, like you could hit your head against the wall. It is so difficult. But then like maybe you take, you know, you get a good night of rest and you were to go back and do that like same activity, you could do it like in a heartbeat and it would be amazing. You are trying, like it's literally taking care of yourself makes life efficient and it saves you time. So the time excuse, self-care creates more time in your life because you can actually function on a battery that's at 100%. And how effectively do you work? And the other one that I totally love is the NASCAR analogy. So I do not watch NASCAR. I don't know if any of you watch NASCAR, but basically if you've ever watched 30 seconds of it, you know that the cars go around and then they make pit stops. So if that car is driving around in circles, it doesn't need a pit stop, but the driver chooses to go over to make a pit stop. Maybe if they didn't make a pit stop, they could make it 3 or 4 more laps, but they might blow a tire, they might run out of gas, they might crash. So they choose intentionally to slow themselves down for that 5 minutes to do a pit stop so that they can recharge and replenish their car so that they can go for longer and make it to the finish line and have a chance of winning the race overall. But even though that activity slowed them down for 5 minutes, it actually helps them get there faster without the crashing and burning. And the same is true for us. Taking that time helps you get there faster, more efficiently, without flat tires and running out of gas. So this part is really just creating resiliency reserves. I love to use that for nurses. It's really just taking that time. And I think Lindsay, when we talked the other week, she said that she had like her like power hour of self-care. And I love that concept of really just like an hour of self-care a day, and not all at once. Like, you do not need to have an hour. And for my nursing shifts, like I get up early and I will do my like mindful time. I do my thought works to figure out what is my brain unintentionally coming up with, like what are those all those miserable things that I'm feeling, and making intentional. I do like a quick workout and I'm out the door. So it's not a full hour, but I'm still giving myself that time to recharge so that now I can arrive on the floor feeling good, feeling prepared for my day, and whatever gong show happens at work, I'm at least going to have those reserves to be able to handle it. So this slide is basically like, these should be your non-negotiables, but most of us, especially as women, we feel that we should be last. But I really, really want to stress, if you are like a nurse, a wife, a mother, the more that you pour into yourself, the better you can provide for your family, the better you can show up with more energy, with more authenticity than if you don't take care of yourself. If you put yourself last, you aren't going to be showing up with energy, you aren't going to be fully present, and you're not going to be as effective in your tasks as you would if you're taking care of yourself. So sleep is so incredibly important, especially as nurses. If you are working nights, whatnot, is really creating routines around sleep. It doesn't matter if you're sleeping at, going to bed at 8 a.m. or going to bed at 10 p.m., creating the same routine. Maybe that's, having a quiet practice, not watching TV. Maybe you need aromatherapy. Maybe you need some quiet practice, yoga, to kind of get yourself relaxed and ready to go to bed. But creating those same routines, whether it be nighttime or daytime, get your body in the habit of going to sleep when you do X, Y, Z. And that's whatever works for you. And then exercise. Exercise is an incredible resiliency tool, because it actually releases lots of endorphins. And 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week is as effective as a low dose antidepressant. So basically, you're giving your body all of the good juju to make yourself feel great, so that you can show up. And really, exercise does not need to be like, you do not need to be hitting the gym with like crazy weights and hit workouts. Like, maybe going for a walk for half an hour, like a couple times a week. Maybe it's doing a yoga practice. Maybe it's like anything that you really enjoy. Exercise does not have to be complicated. It does not have to be crazy. I think most people think that it has to be wild, so they haven't worked out in a year, and then they try to do like some crazy hit workout, and then they like basically die and then they never want to do it again. It does not have to be complicated. Hydration. I think this is something that nurses tend to neglect. Getting enough water is so important because your body works on water. Water helps your brain function. If you're not getting your 2 liters of water a day, your 8 glasses of water a day, your brain cannot think and function appropriately, because your brain needs that water for its cells to be able to function appropriately. And the water is also part of your, waste system. So if your cells do not have enough water, then they're not flushing all of those wastes from them, and you have a buildup of toxins. So really, being dehydrated actually makes you think more poorly, and then you have all this junk in your body, so it doesn't work as effectively. And then the last one is nutrition, really fueling your body like you are what you eat. Think about fueling your body with healthy things. And this is not about making crazy transitions. This is just really about making healthier choices, to give your body the nutrition that it needs so that it can function appropriately. And an amazing thing with nursing, something that has saved me that I've been doing for like almost 2 years now, is meal prepping. If I'm going to be working a full set of shifts, I make like a full crock pot, or I make a large amount of food, have it all prepared and set aside, because you know you're going to be exhausted. So having that food will save you from going to the cafeteria or picking up a pizza on your way home, and make you actually feel good because you're eating good things. This is like the less obvious ones, and these are kind of the additional ones that I have now are non-negotiables, but I know they're kind of more like out there. So I already talked about feeling in what is an emotion or what is feeling. So feeling is literally just a sensation in your body. There's so many of us out there, and myself including from previously, I was like terrified of feeling horrible emotions. Like I did not want to feel them. I wanted to avoid them. And that generally looked like eating, drinking, Netflix, shopping, all to avoid emotion, which is literally just a sensation in your body. So if you aren't afraid of a sensation in your body, like what is possible for you? And it is really an amazing thing to look at it in that aspect. And most of us are not practiced in feeling, and most of us try to run from those feelings. But I really want to, like, if you think of a beach ball, so you have a beach ball and you have a pool, and you're trying to push this beach ball under the water. So this is basically all of those emotions that you're trying to suppress, and that you can push that beach ball under there for as long as you want. But as soon as you get tired, you're going to let go, and it's going to like come back and generally hit you in the face. Like that's how emotions come up. If you suppress them, they just continue to grow and build pressure until they come up and blindside you when you least expect them. So if you actually go through the process of sitting and feeling those emotions, they tend to dissipate and ease so quickly. And the better you get at this, it takes practice. The quicker and quicker you can move through difficult emotions and choose emotions that make you feel good. And a lot of that comes from things like compassion, really having compassion. If you're choosing to do this journey for you, have compassion. You're going to make mistakes along the way. Who cares? It is about just continuing to have compassion for yourself and have compassion for others. I think this is so important, especially during COVID in the nursing profession. There's so much toxicity and negativity, and difficult situations. If you can show up and have some compassion and gratitude, the next one, for your coworkers, your patients, your staff members, and really sharing that, it makes such a difference. And the amount of like you can grow together and the satisfaction you're going to get out of your work, if you're showing up and giving compassion and receiving compassion, it is going to be huge and implemental for you. And then the last one is practicing gratitude, or this is not the last one, the second from last one. Practicing gratitude is such an important practice. If you can show up with gratitude for things that are now, things that are happening today, things that have yet to come, it really just changes your perspective and actually rewires your brain to make those neural connections more strongly, which makes you have more joy in your life when you're focusing on gratitude. So really, I always practice having 3 things I'm grateful for that have happened today, and 1 thing that I'm grateful for that has yet to happen. So that is an evening practice I do every single day. Even if you had like the worst possible shift ever, like horrible, like you get in your car and you could bawl, you're so exhausted, it was so horrible. Find 3 things that you can be grateful for on your car ride home, and like instantaneously, like it just kind of snaps me out of it. And maybe I'm not going to feel like amazing now, but like at least like it just kind of like brings that peace in, and that is so helpful for you. Instead of bringing all of that energy and stuff home with you, you can come home more ready to be at home instead of bringing work home with you. And the last one is mindfulness. I think this is Lindsay's wheelhouse, but I think mindfulness is so incredibly important. Really just practicing your ability to be in the present, to be in the now, really growing those concentration muscles, and knowing that right where you are is okay. Whatever's happening now, I have everything I need in this moment. my favorite mindfulness practice for nursing at work is mindful hand washing. So as a nurse, you have to wash your hands 8,000 times a day, and my hands are quite dry right now. But anyway, so you wash your hands so many times a day. So if you're having a busy, stressful day, take the 30 seconds of washing your hands and shut off your brain and just focus all of your energy on the sensation of washing your hands. So you're just putting all of your brain power on the feeling. Like, imagine you could literally feel your fingertips, and just take that and then wash your hands, dry them, and go back to work. And that is such an effective brain reset. Like, the amount of times I've used that when I've been like completely swamped and like you're in that like, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed right now, just like literally taking that 30-second practice, a few deep breaths, wash your hands, and then you can be like, okay, what do I need to do next? I am like fully reset. So I really encourage you to use that practice, because I feel like that has been so implemental in my nursing. And that is the end of my PowerPoints. I would love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, any scenarios, anything that you really want to talk about, please let me know. So you can look at my website, follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's both at Janna Holterman Coaching. And then I'm going to like get out of here. Oh, I did hide myself and I don't know how to unhide. Anyway, okay. Sorry, just looking at Lindsay laughing at me. All right. The last thing I want to invite you guys all to is I have a free masterclass that is launching on Monday, the Breaking Burnout Masterclass. So it's over 4 days. Each day you're going to get a video and a workbook to work through at your own pace. So I really encourage you, if you resonated with this, to join my Facebook group that is called From Burnout to Badass on Facebook, or you can go to my website or my Instagram. It'll all connect you to that group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't like, my cervical neck is like so warmed up now because I'm over here like, yes, yes, all the stuff that you were going through. I was just like, oh my God. First of all, I was so excited that you nerded out with some anatomy. You know, that's my jam. I love to nerd out. And one of the things that, you know, kind of just came up for me was like talking about the primitive brain. And, you know, this is all like, what you're talking about is really living your yoga, truthfully, because regardless whether you step on the mat, the mindfulness, the nutrition, like all that stuff is living your yoga, connecting to the feelings. But like when you live in your primitive brain and you're in that fight or flight response, then I tend to personally procrastinate from that because I'm like fearful of what's going to happen. So when you talk about like lack of personal accomplishment, you can always come back to the primitive brain. And like, I just loved your tough love, because there is a sense of compassion behind tough love, I think. But like when you said like excuses, like black and white, there are excuses of why you don't show up for yourself, you know, and it's just like that lack of personal accomplishment can go back to that primitive brain because you're fearful and you're like, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, or I can't accomplish that. And that part of the yoga practice is self-study. And that's all about like identifying when that starts to show up. And your brain, like the other piece I loved is like when you were talking about your brain loves stories. And a lot of the times when people start meditation, their brains are telling them stories while they come to stillness or for concentration. And that's why a lot of times they say they can't meditate, because we have this like idea that like your brain has to flatline, which it shouldn't, right? Like it should never flatline. You got other issues if your brain's not working. So it's like at that point, you can connect to those stories that your brain keeps telling you and flip that switch during your meditation using your breath or your meditation, and get to know yourself and how your brain operates. Because if you do want to change, if you do want to take that power hour of self-care a day and do whatever makes you happy during that time, whether it's cooking a nice meal for yourself, doing some yoga, taking a walk, whatever it is in that power hour, if you have it, or splitting it up, then that connection back to yourself of that self-study is really important. And talking a little bit about like tapas and discipline, that's yoga philosophy, is showing up for yourself for self-care to understand that like you're worth it. And if you look into burnout, some of us need to flow out our stress and some of us need to completely restore from our stress. So there's always that, for yoga, whether you want to do a flow practice or a restorative practice. And then if you're really sleep deprived, there's a thing called yoga nidra, which is equivalent to like, I think an hour yoga nidra is equivalent to like 4 hours of sleep. So it's a great power nap in order for anybody to do. So yeah, I mean, all of that stuff that you were saying, like, again, I was like over like, yeah, hoo, because it was just great. So thank you so much. And the hand washing, I'm totally doing a video of hand washing and then just like popping in mindfulness stuff, because I think that's so great of something that somebody can, like, especially nurses, can connect to.
Yeah, honestly, I've had like many people who aren't nurses use it, but it is such a good brain reset. And like, you can't say you don't have 30 seconds because you wash your hands like continually. So
Yeah.
there's no excuses that can come in there.
Totally. So yeah, we can definitely open the floor up. Whoever, wants to unmute themselves and ask Janna or myself any questions. Or you can type them in the chat. I think we have a chat. If you are watching this replayed, you can always reach out to us. Janna gave you her contact information. I'm yogahealthnurse@gmail.com, or in the group. And we can definitely, Janna's in our group for Yoga for Nurses. So we can definitely answer any of the questions that you may have. If you're watching it, this replay will be available on YouTube. You can always pop them in the comments as well on YouTube, and we can do our best to answer. But this was amazing. So open the floor. Anybody who wants to get out there and get some questions in or feedback, any tools that you took away from today that maybe your reflection at the beginning of the class kind of just helped you to understand.
So, hey, this is Melba.
Hi,
So this has been really, really great. And being, I didn't go to nursing school until I was in my 40s. And so, putting myself out there has been uncomfortable and like, wow, I'm really, there's this whole sense of lack of, lack of accomplishment, lack of confidence and things. So and I think putting myself out there more and more and pushing, and that's been uncomfortable sometimes. But I have found that um, when I meditate, and I've really kind of gotten into this a little bit in the last like 6 months or so, meditation and yoga, and I'm feeling like, okay, I'm really valued here and I can really accomplish something. But wow, you really have to push yourself sometimes, and if you're an introvert, it's it's a little more difficult. But this has been really helpful, and this is great. I've taken a lot of notes, and I really truly appreciate this.
thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad that you found it so helpful.
Thank you.
Yes, so a lot of that is completely normal. You're doing something new, unknown. So of course you're gonna have a lot of that doubt coming up. And I honestly, a lot of the time I tell my clients, it's not about like feeding yourself up. It's literally being like, okay, I'm expecting it to happen. I'm doing something new, unknown. I'm putting myself out there. I'm starting nursing at this like, late age. So I'm expecting the doubt to happen, but I'm choosing to do these things anyway, because as you just said, like, I know I'm valued here. Reinforcing those beliefs that you know to be true that positively impact you and make you feel good. Like when you say, I know I'm valued here, like, how does that feel in your body? And use those thoughts to redirect your brain, because your brain will go, like, if you ask yourself, how, like, all of the ways it's not going to work, your brain will come out with 8,000 ways. But if you ask your brain yourself, why are you the perfect person to be a nurse in this role? It's going to hesitate, because it's like, it never answers questions like this, but it will start coming up with questions. So sometimes asking your brain those like flip questions. So if you have like that negative voice saying how difficult it is, switch it and ask, like, how easy is this? Or like, what's the easiest part about this? And really just start flipping those questions. And the answers your brain will come up with is amazing. Our brains love puzzles and they love answering questions. So start asking your brain the right questions that are going to serve you. And as for the taking away a lot of information, our brains are also easily overwhelmed. We take in all of this information, especially if this is all new to you. Your brain is going to be like, this is all gold. And then it's going to like freak out about how amazing it is. And then you're not going to do anything at all. It's going to go on about how amazing it is. And then a week from now, you're going to totally forget that it even happened, because your brain is like, too much, confused, bye, shut down. So pick one thing. Pick your favorite thing from today, whatever it may be, and practice implementing that, and work on that for 4 weeks, because it takes 4 weeks to build a habit. And have a little notebook from this, and go back and pick a new thing. So really just one thing at a time. That's how your brain functions, one thing at a time. And then you can't get overwhelmed and do nothing, which is what our brains love to do.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, that one thing at a time is so challenging for multitaskers. I feel like women, I mean, as women, we're all women here, so woo! But like as women, you are usually a good multitasker. And then as a nurse, you are a great multitasker. So then you take two of those and nurses are usually people who are striving, right? Like if you go into nursing later in life, like clearly you have some motivation and you're a striver, like for goals and achievements. So you take those two things and then you tell us to think of one thing. Like it's super, super hard. But again, it comes back to the discipline and the practice of doing that, because speaking from my burnout experiences, like that's where in my seasons, probably 4 or 5 of them now, just like Janna, who's had these burnout experiences, that is what I've done. I've put way too much pressure on myself to be in 3,000 different places at once, and not getting like very clear with my goals, and not using emotion to drive my action. So instead, my emotions, just like if you don't want to deal with your feelings, you avoid it. But if I want to feel joy and strength and happiness, like that's what causes me to get on the mat or to go out when I can with my friends when I can in 2025. But so like using all of those together to help us. But yeah, that one thing, it just takes so much practice, because again, just like we think that this power hour, like this like someone came up with 60 minutes. Like you're cool if you do 60 minutes of yoga. Like that's it. Like you didn't do yoga or you didn't do exercise if you don't do 60 minutes. And that's not necessarily true. But I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but it was awesome. Don't feel obligated to do an hour, and don't feel obligated to have to do multiple things. Just pick one and do that well. So, Tara, I'm calling you out. It's 8, so we're going to try to keep everybody's timeline going. This is the power hour. You can check off your self-care for today for showing up. So this will be available for replay. If you want to go back through any notes, reach out to Janna or myself. If you need Janna's contact information, reach out to me. I can definitely give it to you as well. And I just want to thank everybody for coming in to this event today. And hopefully we will have more tag teams with Janna in the future.